back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we got a bit of a slow week since the hectic weekend we just had.
Yep. Yeah, no, hasn't been a very busy week in the league. We don't got a whole lot of news to talk about, but we went on for quite a bit earlier this week, so I think we can get away with a little bit more of a short and sweet one this time.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple random snippets throughout the league, but yeah, other than that, it's really not much.
Yeah. They're like, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But I do have one thing that's kind of a bit, somewhat big news, just because it's a very odd situation. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. Where do we want to start here with what we do have?
Well, I guess we can start with some of the quicker ones to go through that there's not too much to talk about. First off, Evgeny Kuznetsov of the Washington Capitals entered the NHL Players Assistance Program over the past few days. I don't believe he has said what for.
Anyone who watched them win the cup can probably make an assumption, but we don't really know for sure. It's tough for Washington. They're battling for a playoff spot, and you lose guys like Backstrom, Kuznetsov, who aren't doing what they used to be, not performing for the team, kind of what they used to do, but still losing two guys like that who take up a big part of your cap situation. It's tough for them right now, right when they're on the verge of battling for a spot. You lose guys like that. It definitely doesn't help your team, that's for sure.
No, and it's wild that they're even battling for a playoff spot, considering the decline that really nobody seemed to see coming of Ovechkin, and Kuznetsov's out now, and they're still finding ways to win a lot of hockey games.
They're still right there in the mix. Like, again, do they make the playoffs? No. And that's just because of the cluster of teams in the Eastern Conference that are right in the mix there. I don't see them, beating out one or two of those teams to get in. So
yeah, they're currently at 51 points. To get into the wild card spot in the East, you'd have to have at this point 59 and 58 points in the first and second wild card spot. So they're falling back a bit. I didn't realize. So they were a lot closer. Apparently, they're on a 6-game losing streak right now.
Yeah, they've been on a skid as of lately, and I think they just lost. Yeah, they just lost tonight as well against Florida. So
yeah, and a teammate in the conference, so that'll make it even harder.
Yeah, I think it's the start of that rebuild, retool, whatever they're going to end up doing. Again, when you got Ovechkin, I don't think you can really just be like, yeah, we're rebuilding. I think I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to have some tough decisions to make. And you know what? If the rest of the season keeps going downhill, and you can add I don't know if they end up getting into that area of a top 5 pick. But even if you get a top 8 pick, that's a good player that you can bring into the fold, and they can potentially jump into their lineup, maybe a year or two away, and maybe be a part of them trying to, achieve something during Ovi's, last 1 or 2 years. But it's tough to say what they're going to do because they got a lot of big decisions to make now.
Yeah, and just on the players' note, obviously, best wishes to Evgeny Kuznetsov. Hopefully, whatever he's got going on, hopefully the Players Assistance Program helps him clear that up.
Yeah, for sure. I guess just the next one we got on the list here. Again, not really much to say. Just best wishes for everyone kind of involved. But Calgary Flames legend Lanny McDonald is currently in the hospital and recovering after suffering a cardiac event a couple days ago. Reports came out that he is doing okay. He did put out a little message about it. So obviously we hope that everything going forward for him checks out and he's doing okay moving forward, because those can be very serious incidences, and thankfully he came out on the right end of one of them.
Yeah, he was at the airport and he collapsed, and I guess two, I don't know if they're paramedics or nurses, but two people who had a lot of knowledge in the medical field stopped and ran over and helped him out, and it sounds like they were a big help in helping stabilize him till emergency services could arrive. So um, that
Yeah.
was that was really lucky, and it's good to hear that he's it sounds like he's in stable condition and recovering in the hospital.
Yeah, 100%.
As far as I'm aware, this is the last injury or type news to start off
Yeah.
the episode. But Mikhail Sergachev the other day went down with a really nasty looking leg injury against the Rangers. He had to be stretchered off. Both teams were on the ice. It was a really hard to watch whole scene that kind of unfolded. And luckily, earlier today, he did undergo successful leg surgery in New York. Uh, he had a fractured tibia and fibula, so luckily he avoided any nerve, tendon, muscle damage. But still, both those broken bones. That's really tough for a guy who just came back from a 17 game absence with a broken foot. So
Yeah.
you could tell he was really upset. He had worked hard to come back, and that sucks for the Lightning. That was a real gut punch.
Yeah, it's always tough when you're playing without a guy and a big part of your team as it is, and then he finally comes back. It's like, all right, now we can finally turn the page and we're getting healthier and we're getting the squad together, the boys rolling again, and then boom, he's back out of the lineup just like that. It really puts him in a tough position, because I think if they want to go on a playoff run, I think now that Sergachev's not coming back at all this year, I think now looking towards a trade deadline, I think Tampa Bay's got to go out and look at adding in some kind of defenseman, whoever that may be. I know that they have been kind of linked a little bit to David Savard, bringing him back over from Montreal, but again, the price for Savard is probably going to end up being a first round pick. Tampa Bay really doesn't have that, and even if they do they really trade a first round pick from years down the line? It's tough. So
I think that's what they were looking at doing. Now that Sergachev isn't just some defenseman, he is far and away our second best defenseman. Some people would even argue our first at this point.
I was going to say you could make that argument.
And yeah, I think at this point, if they're going to make a move at the deadline, it's got to be for a Mikey Asamont type guy that has multiple years on his deal and is a bit of one of those long-term rentals, for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't think they can afford to give up much for a guy with 1 year left and go for it. I think
Savard's got some term though.
That's true, and I don't know on Savard's case specifically, but yeah, I know a lot of people were hoping we'd load up with another big defenseman and make a deep run this year, but we were maybe a bit of a tier below some of the top teams in the league, and without Sergachev, it's a tough sell to try and go for another cup when you've got him out, and it's been a bit of a struggle this year. So I think reloading for next year would be the best course of action.
Yeah, that's kind of the way. That's kind of the way that I view it. Like at this point, it's Tampa Bay already really doesn't have that strong of a prospect pool. They're not really rolling around in top end draft picks. And how many years into the future do you want to keep digging into? Like, I think if you have Sergachev, then you could go out and maybe move a lower end prospect or a kind of a later round pick and bring someone in. But I think with him out now, there's nobody you can get on the market to replace that. And anybody you bring in just isn't going to come close to the level of play that he did. So I think you're right. I think you might just have to be like, you know what, and injuries are a part of it. You might just have to kind of roll with what you got. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, you just look towards next year, because that whole core of that team is still in place for next year. So you can always run it back next year and hope that it's a better situation where injuries aren't playing a role like this.
Yeah. But realistically, all we lose in this offseason, the only thing we don't have nailed to the floor is Stamkos. And I genuinely still don't see him going anywhere. I think it's going to get done. I think Brisebois just wants to know for sure what the cap's going to be. Like, as soon as we get the official, this is how much it's going up, I think not long after that, we're going to see him sign a new contract. At least that's what I'm hoping. So, I do think they're going to regroup, hopefully make the playoffs, try something out in the postseason, but just move forward next year.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And it sounds like Sergachev, this is not specific to Sergachev's situation at all. This is just me Googling around, seeing what I could find for fractured tibias and fibulas. But it sounds like on the higher end, it's around 5 to 6 to 7 months to return, which would be about the start of next season. So obviously, I think his season's over. But if he can come back for the start of next year, that's obviously what we'd be hoping for at this point.
Yeah, with an injury of that and the recovery, it's probably again one of those ones that we've seen in past years, just some guys where their entire offseason is just all rehabbing, and then it's really not till the beginning of training camp to start the season that they kind of get skating again. So it's probably like most likely you probably see Sergachev come in, maybe 12 to 15 games into the season.
Yeah.
Just because you got to give him time back on the ice and get back into the groove and fully ready before you throw him right in. So, but again, he's obviously going to be back next season at whatever point it is. And then that's going to add a lot to Tampa Bay once they get him back in and going with them. Because like we said, you can make the argument that he is their top defenseman and he logs a shit ton of minutes for them every game. So that's just something you can't replace.
Yeah. So well wishes and hopefully a speedy recovery for Sergachev going forward.
Speaking of not trading draft picks, have you heard the situation going on with the New York Rangers?
I have not.
All right. Well, so I saw this the other day, and I thought it was a quite interesting scenario because you don't really see anything like this. So the New York Rangers owner is James Dolan.
Yeah.
So we know that this year in Vegas, taking place at the big Sphere there, is going to be the very final centralized draft. And
right,
New York
doing
Rangers,
they're doing it remotely, right?
Yeah. And so the New York Rangers owner Dolan, he actually owns the Sphere in Vegas. And he's now made it clear to their GM and their higher ups that despite them being top of the Metro and going to be one of the big teams in the East in the playoffs, he has told the higher ups that they are not allowed to trade their first round pick for this year, because he wants the Rangers to go into the draft with their own first round pick so they can be part of this spectacular that will be taking place at his venue. Which means then if the Rangers, if they want to go out and add players to their team and whatnot, they're going to be after sending out future assets. So first round picks next year, the year after, when I mean, if anything, like the Rangers are going to be a good team in the playoffs. I'm not a fan of them, but
They're a strong, strong team.
yeah. So really, it's like you'd rather keep a first round pick that's probably going to be, I would say, 24 to 32, and just to be part of it when you might like I don't know how good the Rangers are going to be next year. Like realistically, if it's not for Jonathan Quick, the Rangers are a lot lower down than
Yeah.
where they're at right now. And is Quick going to be that good next year? No, a lot of their core is getting older. And so it's, if you're trading first round picks from future years to go all in this year and it doesn't work, now you're looking at, next year and you might be trading a pick that's in the 12 to 16 range, all just because you want it to be part of the spectacular going on at
Yeah,
the owner's venue. So
that's that's so dumb. That's got to be frustrating for the general manager and the guys
yeah,
on the Rangers. Like, you got this good thing going. You want to make a big splash. You want to make the move, and it's not hard to do because guys love going to New York, and you're not allowed to trade your biggest trade chip. That's
yeah,
that's crazy. Like, hey, how about instead you show up? The owner, how about he shows up with the Stanley Cup to the thing when they host it? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't you rather have a Stanley Cup than a first round draft pick that'll be in the 20s? Like,
Yeah.
that's uh, that's very strange. That's very strange.
And this isn't confirmed or anything. It is kind of pure speculation, but there is some strength behind the people kind of putting these rumors out. But it sounds like the Rangers were in pretty hard on acquiring Elias Lindholm from Calgary. And the biggest reason why they kind of fell out of those talks is, again, like what Calgary got from Vancouver, that first round pick this year. The Rangers weren't willing to do that.
Yeah.
And and Calgary obviously wasn't going to be like, yeah, send us a first round pick next year or the year after. Like Calgary wanted that first round pick to add into their fold for this year and to, bring pieces into so they can kind of start this retool. And that could very well be the reason why Elias Lindholm didn't go to the Rangers, is because they weren't willing to part with their first round pick this year. And if Elias Lindholm is exactly what they needed after the news came out that Filipino's now done for the year after concussion symptoms, Elias Lindholm is the perfect player to fill that spot.
Yeah.
And so that's a bad look if that's, again, we don't know for sure, but if that's the reason why they didn't get Elias Lindholm, that's
brutal.
That's not an owner that wants to win the cup this year. It's an owner who wants all the spotlight at his venue.
That's a rich guy doing dumb shit because he has his little toys. He has his little toy franchise because he's a billionaire. Like, that's a really dumb look, and he probably doesn't care about that look because he's a billionaire. But that's
exactly.
Man, if the Rangers go to the conference finals and then lose, a guy like Elias Lindholm, that's a difference maker.
Yeah.
Like, and that also just bumps every single other one of your centermen down. Not only does he look great as a second line center, but how good does their current second line center look as a third line center? Like, it adds at the top and it shifts everything down. And
not only that, like,
that's
on the power play and penalty kill, like he does it all. Like, that's
Lindholm's a Swiss Army knife. Like, that is exactly what they could have used, and
it is the exact piece that they needed.
Yeah, man, I hate owners getting involved in it. For years we've seen it with Vancouver. The Aquilinis will randomly just show up
that's a big one, actually.
Just, hey, this guy's the flavor of the month. Go out, do whatever it takes to get this guy. And the GM's like, we don't want that guy. It'll cost too much, and we have our eye on this guy. Nope, we're the owners, and we say get this guy. And that put Vancouver in a bad spot for several years.
And then if the GM doesn't go out and grab the guy they want, he's out of a job within the next 6 months.
Yeah, so it's very frustrating to see. They hire these guys with decades of experience in hockey and management with the team and all that, and then the guy who saw a highlight of a guy score a goal, goes, this guy, get him. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, you hate to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up because you don't really ever see stuff like that happen. So, uh, yeah.
Nah, there's not much to say on it, really. Just strange, I suppose.
And it's again, it's even kind of like we talked about with the Canucks. There's always the possibility they could have got Elias Lindholm, and then they could have potentially gone on to win the cup. I think you add Lindholm. I think they're probably one of the top 3 favorites to win.
Yeah,
And now, say you win the cup and whatnot, you could even going up into the draft. You can find a team and do a sign and trade, and then you can get a first round pick back, and then boom, you're right back there in the first round to pick whoever, potentially even in a better spot than where your pick ends up being. Like,
yeah,
there's just ways they could have gone about it. I think that would have worked out in every capacity, but they chose to go a different route, and I think again, there's a lot of teams that like this is a good and deep first round this year. Like teams are wanting the first round picks for this year, like with what Calgary did, and I think Calgary got a slam dunk. Kuzmenko's looking great. He's got 2 goals in his first 2 games. He's making Huberdeau look much better. Obviously, Brushevich, and now you add in a first round pick, then you're going to get a good player in this year's draft. You
yeah.
know,
I mean, yeah, the Flames just beat they beat Boston 4-1, and then tonight they just beat the Devils 5-3. Like those
yeah,
are 2 pretty good teams, and they handled them fairly easily. Like
yeah.
they're looking a lot better after that trade, so I think that was really good for them.
So it'll be interesting to see what the Rangers
If they
are
try and
going to
still
be
make a
doing.
move, yeah,
Yeah. But enough with the Rangers now. What do we got next here? We only got a couple
yeah.
more things on the
Let's talk
agenda.
about the Brendan Dillon hit. So Brendan Dillon of the Winnipeg Jets was suspended 3 games after a hit to the head on Noel Achari of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um, yeah, he pretty much saw ahead all the way. It wasn't one of those ones where he reached out and only hit the head, but
Yeah.
he was coming at him head on, and the head was definitely the first thing that got hit.
Yeah. Like it wasn't a go in and it, like a Brendan Gallagher and intentionally
Yeah,
go and hit the head. He was going in to make a hard hit. He hit the head, and at the end of the day, like you do that, it's a suspension. You got to be aware of what's going on when you're going in to hit a guy, and if you're going to take a run at a guy, you got to make sure that you're you know hitting him in a way that's clean, and this one wasn't. So do I think, like, I think 3 games is maybe a bit much. I think 2 would have been fine, just based on the precedent of what we've seen other guys get for other hits or not get. So I feel like throwing 3 at him's a bit much. But I don't. Did he get suspended for his cross checks to Kaprizov?
no, he didn't.
Okay, so I wonder if maybe that played a role in it. They're like, you know
That
what,
could definitely be a part of it.
you got away with one earlier, and you've done this, so now
Uh-huh.
we're gonna throw the book at you a bit harder.
Yeah, I think 3 games is fine. It's a little more than what guys will often get for this, but I think they need to start having it be more. It would be a lot to give them 6 or 7 games compared to what they've given other guys, but I'd like to see a league where we get to the point where a guy hits somebody in the head and we can give them a proper suspension to make it a lot more a lot worse for the team and the player to make those hits. So they maybe
Yeah,
think twice a bit more, but not quite there yet. But I think as it stands right now, I think three's around the ballpark. Yeah.
and if and again, if this is the precedent that they're setting going forward for these kind of hits, then I'm all for that. Then I've
Eh,
got
Yeah.
no issue with this.
It sucks that we always have to preface any suspension in the league with "I'm fine with this if it's the new precedent." because it
Yeah.
really it's only the new precedent until the next time somebody gets suspended, and then that's the new precedent.
Yeah,
And like,
exactly.
not
Until
they
we
never
start
really
seeing
hold themselves to the same rules.
exactly.
It's frustrating for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, overall, like I'm not I think, you know what? Again, I could make the argument for 2, but I think 3 is also fine, especially when I mean, we don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if him getting away for what he did to Kaprizov earlier this season kind of played a role in this. It's like, "Okay, you know what? We let you off the hook. You did this again, like, now we
Yeah.
can't turn a blind eye to it again." Um, so but I mean, Winnipeg's struggling right now. Like, back-to-back losses, only 1 goal between those 2 games, and those are their first
Yeah.
2 since acquiring Sean Monahan.
The uh
Um,
the entire top of the Central Division is struggling right now. Dallas is in first. They admittedly they're only on a 1 game loss streak, but right below them, Colorado's on a 3 game loss streak, and then Winnipeg in third is on a 5 game loss streak. So
yeah,
the uh, the top of that division is opening up a little bit. I don't know if anybody's actually really close to getting in there at all.
yeah,
Uh,
not overly.
LA's in the
Um,
Pacific, so yeah.
yeah, and the
No,
Blues
even
are
yeah.
11 back. Like those 3 are kind of locked in now.
Yeah, even with 5 games lost in a row, Winnipeg is still 11 above
Yeah,
St. Louis. So they're pretty comfortably there, unless they,
yeah,
you know, drop as many as the Kings did or something like that. But
yeah.
I think they'll be
Which with
fine.
those teams, yeah, I don't see that happening with those teams.
No. Um,
Um,
but the Oilers in the Pacific, for the first time in a while, they are on a 1 game losing streak. Their
yep,
Their 16-game win streak came to an end at the hands of the Vegas Golden Knights the other day.
yeah.
Uh, I did not watch the game. Did you?
I
I
I
thought you were
saw
watching some of it.
I saw a good chunk of it, mostly kind of the third period. Like it was a great back and forth game. We've seen it a couple times over the last previous years, but again, I'm more than happy to see these 2 teams go head to head in the playoffs. I mean, I think Aiden Hill kind of really stole this one for Vegas. He played like just outstanding in this game from start to finish. But man, every time these 2 teams go up against each other, you get an instant classic. So, um, and you know what? I'm not a Vegas fan. I've made that uh, as clear as I possibly can. But if there's anyone to end this win streak, Vegas is very fitting for it.
It makes a lot of sense, especially after the playoffs last year. Uh, at the moment, Vegas is kind of the Edmonton Oilers boogeyman. That's just that one team that they always run into and they can't quite beat.
Yeah,
So that would if those 2 teams could meet in a second round or a conference final again this year, that would be really fun.
yeah, yeah. Uh, just a fun fact, and this starting on December 6th, this was a little bit before Edmonton's win streak had started. On December 6th, they ended up winning uh 4 in a row, which actually in total made that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that put them on after those 4 wins. That put them on an 8 game win streak. They ended up dropping 3 games, and then they went on their 16 game win streak. So from on December 6th, before like this incredible run that the Oilers went on, they were 12 points back of the Vancouver Canucks. After all of this, now in the end of their winning streak, they've now
16
closed
games
the
in a
gap.
row.
They've now closed the gap to 14 points. They actually lost ground on the Canucks through all of this,
Through their
which
win completely loss-free January. They
yeah,
didn't gain a single point on them.
they lost points if anything on them. They're now 14 back. Like
Wow.
and that's a thing just a lot of people aren't talking about. The Oilers win streak really kind of because of the market they're in the same division as the Canucks. they really kind of took away a lot of the attention that the Canucks had from the beginning of the season up until the Oilers win streak started. And like the Canucks just kept rolling. You know, they'd have a loss like here and there. They didn't have that 16 game win streak, but they were still like the best team in the league, and the focus just wasn't really on them. So I kind of want to shift that back to the Canucks because like they're really just, you know, we kind of thought maybe eventually, you know, they'd kind of fall off a bit, but they'd still be in the mix because they had such a great start. But like they've just stayed on that level.
Yeah,
And
they have not slowed down really at all. And like, man, playing against them in the playoffs is gonna suck for whatever team gets them because
yeah,
look at this 18-4-2 record at home. Like
yeah,
going and playing in that building is tough.
yeah, actually, like it's and they're just such a deep team. Like, you know, even when you consider a guy like Dakota Joshua, he's making like 800K this year, and he's playing in a kind of middle six, bottom six role, and he's got 23 points in 49 games. Like, and you've got a guy who's not even putting a dent in your salary cap, and he's doing that is that's just incredible, and that's just like what they're getting from their depth is also a huge reason of why they're where they're at. Like, not only is their goaltending terrific, their big players are doing well, but their depth is not slacking at all.
Yeah, they top to bottom that team has done really well, and with the addition of Elias Lindholm, that
Yeah.
team is poised to go far in the playoffs. You do have to wonder if they can be the team to bring the cup back to Canada.
If I had to pick a team to do it, it would be the Canucks. I personally would honestly love to see it be Winnipeg, just because, you know,
Yeah.
that rise for Winnipeg from like, oh, no one wants to play in Winnipeg, all their star players want out, to now having those guys locked in and they go on a run to do it, I think would be such an incredible story. But realistically, I think the Canucks have the best chance, because if it's in a situation where you know, you're looking at the first round for them, they got to play a St. Louis Blues and Nashville Predators, the Seattle, uh, you know, maybe even Calgary slips into there. They're, you know, only 1 point back now after putting some wins together.
What a
Whoever they,
interesting matchup that would be. You trade
yeah,
Lindholm to the Canucks and you end up making the playoffs and facing them in the first round.
yeah. And but that's the thing. Like, I feel like whoever Vancouver plays first round, assuming they don't collapse, they have a pretty easy first round. And then you've got, you know, Vegas and Edmonton. It probably goes, I would say, 7 games between those two teams. And then whoever makes it out, like, you know, whether it's Vegas, the defending champs, or Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl, you're getting a pretty beat up team, especially if Edmonton wins and Pietrangelo doesn't get his way. You know, he's going to be trying to knock out as many guys as he can.
Yeah.
So, like, it's looking kind of nice for the Canucks where they're at right now, as long as, you know, they just keep on doing what they're doing and don't get too crazy and absurd with it. Just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it for them right now.
Yeah, and these are both teams that the Canucks and the Jets that we didn't know what to do with them almost in our preseason predictions. We were like, you know,
Yeah.
we were wondering, you know, they might make the playoffs, but if they do, just barely. It was a little more we knew they'd make it with the Jets, only because of the Central Division being pretty weak outside those top three.
Yeah.
But I think in our preseason predictions that we did forever ago, I had Vancouver just barely making the playoffs over the Calgary Flames, and they're just so dominant this year. Plus 56 goal differential on the year. I believe
Yeah.
that's the highest in the league.
It should be.
It is. I don't believe this is updated, so it's actually probably very close now. Only because they have a plus 56, and the next highest is plus 46 by Boston. But they actually got beat 4-0 tonight by Boston. So theirs would now be 52, and Boston's would be 50. But they are still atop, even
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, like this Canucks team, man, is just how quickly it's turned around a year from almost the day. Like we talked about it only happened about a year and a week ago that it was Bo Horvat was shipped out, and it was like, is this kind of the start of a retool for the Canucks now? Like, and now a year later, and they're top of the. Are they top of the league?
I
Tied for
I
top,
want to think so.
and they're just like firing on
73.
all cylinders.
Okay, so assuming this isn't updated, or assuming it is updated, they're tied with Boston now.
Yeah. Mine's updated, and they're tied with Boston. Which I wouldn't be opposed to getting a Vancouver Boston final, a rematch of 2011. I would obviously,
I mean,
hopefully Vancouver's on the winning end of it this time.
I was gonna say I don't want to see it if Vancouver doesn't win, but
yeah,
you can say that about a lot of matchups.
yeah, and that's the thing is, like, only a couple years ago we had Montreal make it to the Cup final, but it really didn't feel that special because it was the whole weird NHL year, and it was like, everybody kind of like, yeah, they went on this incredible run, but it was like they're going up against Tampa, like Tampa's gonna stomp them, and they did.
I
But, like,
definitely felt like Tampa was gonna throttle him in that series, but
yeah, I did.
after the Canadians beat the Vegas Golden Knights, who were a very good team still, I'm surprised more people weren't like, I don't know, this team's got the magic. Like, I was surprised more non-Tampa fans weren't feeling that, just because, like, they shouldn't have beat the Leafs, they shouldn't have beat the Jets, they shouldn't have beat the Golden Knights, and maybe
Mhm.
it was just because of how resilient Tampa was,
It
especially
was
with
just how
Matthews
good
playing those
Tampa was,
playoffs.
like
But
top to bottom. But, like, that's the thing. If in a normal year now everything's back to normal, if and normal playoffs, like, if we get a Canadian team go on a run and make there, like, that would be incredible. And
seeing the whiteout in Winnipeg in the playoffs in a cup final would be so cool.
yeah,
It would be so
like
cool to see.
that would be one of the coolest atmospheres ever. And that's also the thing. Like, I get people like, and we even talked about it a couple episodes ago, how players like hate going to play in Winnipeg because it's so cold, and that's part of the reason why a lot of players don't want to go to Winnipeg. It's like, but man, you just like, if you're a player who loves diehard fans and a great atmosphere to play in, a tough barn to play in, like, especially in the playoffs, that's one of the top, I think. Like, when you get that whiteout going and how loud it gets there, there's not many atmospheres that can beat it.
Yeah,
There's really not.
there's really not. It's Man, there's some of those clips that you'll see of these past years. Nashville when they won their last playoff round. Was it against the Coyotes in the play-in round? Like, or one of these past years. I know it was in Nashville. Uh, the
Coyotes
arena just
beat the Preds that year.
it was okay.
I think
I
their
know
last playoff win might have actually been back when they
went to the
I
cup
can't
final.
remember who they beat, yeah, but they went to the Cup final.
Yeah, and just like that building just lost their mind for every single goal. Like,
Yeah.
it's no wonder that so many players end up in Nashville, like, and so many guys say it's a fun place to play. Like, that fan base is electric all the time.
Yeah. It was Anaheim that they beat that year.
Anaheim.
So weird. We're in a world where it was like either Anaheim or Nashville. I was
So it's a
looking
longer
at it
ago.
now.
Yeah. Um, but I don't think we have too much else. Markstrom was interviewed. Jacob Markstrom of the Calgary Flames recently in a interview was asked about trade talks. Apparently, there's been rumors that they're looking at shopping him maybe around, seeing what's out there. Um, and I, where's the quote here? He said, "It's up to Calgary what they want to do." So it's not much telling, but it is interesting when a guy doesn't say, "I hope not, I want to be here," and instead says, "It's up to the team."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's an interesting situation. I know I've already seen a lot of Calgary fans are like, you can't trade him, and especially like they're right on the cusp of the playoffs, and I think if you trade Markstrom, that's throwing in the towel on the season. Like, I really don't see why Calgary makes it to the playoffs if they move up Markstrom.
is that a bad thing necessarily? They've got quite a
Well,
few
and
first
that's
first
the
round
thing.
picks going forward, and they've got this fantastic goalie in Dustin Wolf coming up. Is it
I don't
better
think Dustin
to
Wolf's not ready to be a straight up starter though.
No, but I think between him and Dan Vladar, you could split the starts next season and kind of season him into that guy.
Yeah.
I
And
and
that's the
I don't
thing though, then you're taking steps back, so it's
But I think they have to. I don't think they're a team that's ready to go on a cup run or anything, go deep in the playoffs. I think they have to take a step back before they can go forward. And I think this might be the highest they're going to get Markstrom's trade potential.
it's the highest
Uh
his value will be.
yeah.
For sure right now. Like the way he's playing and his contract having that, the rest of this season, the playoffs, like that's a huge part of it. Um but again, my biggest thing is, you sell Markstrom, you get a first and X, whatever else back. Awesome. But with the pieces and players that they have, they're never gonna be, a team going for a top 5, top 8 pick. Like you're going to be in that cusp of just missing out on the playoffs. And if you get stuck into that rhythm, because if you've got guys like Rasmus Anderson, Uyghur, Huberdeau, Kadri, uh,
Yeah.
Zari now coming up, like you're not going to be a bottom team, and it's not going to be enough to get you to the playoffs. And if you get stuck in that middle of the pack there for years on end, like we saw with Minnesota, you
I think
you
they've
just
got too much
flounder.
talent for that. I think they've got too much talent to consistently stay there. I think if they took that step back this year, they would come back next year with another year seasoned and all the young guys that they've got and the picks that they'll have that'll actually be players at that point. I
But
think
you got to really hope that
they would move forward at that point.
Dustin Wolf makes that leap though. Like we see him dominate in the AHL. He looks okay in the NHL, but he doesn't stand out like this, superstar elite goalie should. And I like Dan Vladar. Calgary certainly loves him, but he again, he's not a guy that can be a legit starter for you. And I guess it depends if they feel comfortable rolling those two in a tandem if that can work for them. But at the same time, it's Markstrom's value will never be higher than where it's at right now. So
Yeah, I think between what they could get right now for Markstrom and what they got for Lindholm, they could basically get what would be worth a rebuild out of those two players while still having all these guys on their roster that they're clearly not a rebuilding team. I think they would have enough pieces that they could really put something solid together and be able to improve for the future without actually selling too much because I don't think the team gets that much worse. Uh Moving out Markstrom and then bringing up Wolf
so yeah,
and
I
running the
think
tandem. They definitely get worse.
they get
But
much worse.
I don't think I don't think the team is a bottom 10 team after that.
No,
I
but
think
I don't
I
think
think
they're a
I
team
think
that
they're
can win.
I think they would be next year. I don't think they would be this year. I think they would be next year. or at least a team poised to look at a wild card spot. The St. Louis Blues are in a wild card spot right now. Like if
That's
if
yeah.
if they could get decent pieces back, I think I'm looking at all the teams surrounding them in the wild card race. I think them in first crack would be interesting. I think they should beat out the Predators. They should beat out the Blues. The Kings are lower than they should be. The Kings probably take one of those wild card spots, but
Yeah.
I think they'd have a real shot at the second wild card spot next year if they were able to turn that around.
Uh, I don't know because you also remember, you move Markstrom out and you get, uh, you move him to whoever. It's going to be obviously be a contender. If you're adding in those as good as prospects as you're going to be getting in that 24 to 32, they're still going to be 2 to 3 years away before making the jump. Like it's
Yeah,
not like they're going to be drafting players that can immediately come in and help. Um,
yeah.
Again, I guess it really depends how comfortable do they feel about Vladar
It would
and Wolf
entirely
as a
depend on
tandem.
what the return is, right? Like what team could use a Markstrom? If Detroit is looking to make a run at the playoffs and they want a bona fide starter over there, uh, you know, it would be a first plus, right? So would
Mhm.
it be a first and a decent roster player, or you know, because if they could get something similar like what they got for Lindholm, which I don't think they'd get that much, but if you can get, a great roster player like they got, plus all these extra things, uh, then I think they could uh, turn around quicker than people think.
I think the main thing they need to do is set a value and not take anything less than that. They need to be like, if we're moving Markstrom, it's going to be obviously, I'm assuming a first, and then whatever else, and that has to be your bar, and you cannot go below that bar.
Yeah,
And
if you are in a negotiation and you are willing to go less than you want, you've already lost. Like
yeah,
you have to pick the price point at this is where it would be worth it, and you got to get that or more. You
yeah,
you can't say I want a first and a blue chip prospect or a first and a second line center, and then a team shows up on the last day of the trade deadline and says we'll give you a first for him and you take it.
yeah,
You can't do that. You say, you know what? No, I'll hold on to Markstrom and we'll have him next year, and you guys won't have a goalie. So
yeah. And the big thing,
I don't think they need to move him.
they
To
don't
reiterate,
need to.
I am. They are definitely not in a spot where they need to and should be actively trying to move him. But if a team comes knocking and says, "Hey, we're looking for a goalie," I definitely think they should at least explore it.
Yeah, 100%. And a big part of it is I think we are kind of in agreement. I think everybody is that they're going to be trading Chris Tanev, which obviously really hurts their defense. And then Noah Hannafin. We still don't know if he's one of the few guys that actually signs in and stays in Calgary or if they move him. But I think if you're moving Tanev and Hannafin, you might as well move Markstrom because you lose two of your top four defensemen, you're immediately taking a couple steps back. So you might as well then move Markstrom, just really
Yeah,
gather as many assets as you can for 2 to 3 years away when you can really then you know go all in and make a push because
yeah,
if you're moving Tanev and Hannafin, you keep Markstrom, that just makes absolutely zero sense for them. But if you move
yeah.
all three, if you're your draft picks and roster and like prospect pool could be looking really good actually by the end of the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think moving both of them, maybe not one or the other, but if you moved both Hannafin and Tanev, I think that would hurt the team more than trading Markstrom on its own.
I would agree.
I
I
I
would
think
100% agree.
losing two top four caliber defensemen is absolutely brutal uh,
Yeah.
to a team's performance, and Hannafin really kind of does it all for them, but Tanev is so good defensively.
And he's a
Um,
heart and soul guy.
he is
like
like, that is everything. Like, if Sergachev didn't just go down like we were talking earlier, that is, like, exactly the type of guy I'd like Tampa to get, and everybody that I've seen, not just from Tampa fans, like, all these contending teams' fans online, all I'm seeing is, "I hope my team isn't the one that goes for Tanev."
Well, because a lot of people
Nobody
don't
wants him.
like the idea of giving up a first round pick for a rental. But if you can trade for Tanev and
That's how you
lock him
win.
in,
I mean, maybe
then
it's
like
just
that's
easier. Maybe it's easier for me to say it as a Tampa fan, but like trading first round picks is how you get the pieces you need to win on a
but all the
on a
guys
run.
Tampa got weren't rentals really. Like Goodrow you got for 2 years, Coleman you got for two, Hagel you've got for like 25 now it feels like and that's part of the thing is also Tanev's a bit older. So again, if you're a team that can be like, yeah, we'll give you a first and this mid prospect for Tanev, but you already have talked to Tanev and you can be like, hey, we'll sign you to a 3 year extension at X amount, and he says, yeah, I would do that. Then you 100% have to pull the trigger on that.
That would
But
be
I think
really
you
that would
need
be
to
really
know
interesting.
you're getting an extension with him. I think, and I think that's what kind of scares off some teams is
Do many
that
teams
price of
do
a
that
first.
do many teams do that at the trade deadline, doing like a
Oh yeah,
sign and trade for a 3-year contract
not a. I'm
for
trying to
like those
think
middle
of a.
contract? Because all the
Yeah, I'm
sign
trying to
and
think of
trades
a.
I hear about are these big 8-year deals for 60 plus million. Like if you could just get Tanev to sign, another uh 3 by 4 or something like that, and then do the sign and trade with that, and then you have him for the rest of this year and then the 3 years after on that contract. Like,
I'm trying to think
as
even
long
of
as Tanev's
when we've
okay with
seen
that,
that though.
that would
Like
be a great deal.
I'm just trying to think of like when I can't remember over the like the trade deadlines have obviously haven't been as a lot of the top players are moved before the deadline. I can't even think off the top of my head of when a player like a Chris Tanev who's at his point in his career where he's by no means young, he's on the older side, but he's still playing at a top four, top two defenseman level, great on the penalty kill, get moved. Like I can't remember in recent years. Maybe there is one that I'm missing off the top of my head, but I can't remember a guy that's in his position that's been moved.
Yeah, there's not a ton, and all the ones that do get moved end up being, cap dumps, guys like Ryan McDonough, who was at that age and was playing very well, but he was just making too much for Tampa's future and they had to just kind of dump him off
Yeah,
to Nashville.
yeah. I honestly can't even. And again, like there's still the rumors that New Jersey's interested in Markstrom and Tanev, and I've seen the rumors of a first round pick and like a Simon Nemec going back. I think if you can get a first and Nemec for Markstrom and Tanev, I'd pull a trigger on that every day of the week, twice on Sundays. Like,
Oh,
because I like that's
that would be fantastic for them, dude.
like
Getting
even if that
Simon Ne
first round pick becomes nothing,
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
get
say,
Nemec.
honestly, I would take that deal in a heartbeat if it's just Simon Nemec. He looks
Yeah.
to be really good. I think he's gonna be a freaking all-star in this league
Now,
before
do I
long.
think New Jersey does that? No. But at the same time, if you're trying to win now and that's the price you got to pay for those guys, then
Yeah,
maybe that's a more serious discussion that
yeah,
they end up having. But like, and that's saying is Calgary holds all the cards in this. Like, yeah, maybe
because
they're kind of forced to
yeah,
move
Markstrom's got
Tanev, but
3 years left. They don't have to move him.
yeah. But if they want to get the most for him, now is the time
Now
to
would be a good
do
time
that.
to do it. And,
Yeah.
we've said it before on the podcast, that's uh, regardless of what the trade value is on each side, if Simon Nemec goes on to put up, astronomical numbers, 13, 1,400 points in a career as a defenseman
Jeez.
yeah, like if he does something crazy as a defenseman over his career and there's statues of him in Calgary when all is said and done. If Markstrom wins a cup for the Devils still won that trade. Even if Calgary also won, there's no way the Devils lose a trade where they won a cup off of it.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
can maybe make the argument if there's a dynasty in Calgary. That's like the only way you could even make that argument. And even still, you you got a cup. Like that's the goal. So
Yeah.
even if you have to overpay like crazy, if that's what you need to get over the hump and you think that's your year, which maybe this isn't the Devils' year, they're not looking as good as they were last year by any means. They're currently 53 points on the season. They're
They've
5 out
been
of the
bad for
playoffs.
what their roster is. Also,
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is if you're trading, like, is it going to happen that they get moved together? Probably not. But if you're the Devils and you're getting Markstrom and Tanev, there's a 95% chance that you get Tanev to sign an extension because he played for years in Vancouver with Markstrom. They went over to Calgary the same year. I think it was one of them was back home in Sweden. I'm pretty sure it was Markstrom was back in Sweden, and Tanev called him, and it was like 2 a.m, just like giddy as shit, being like, "Hey man, I'm coming to Calgary with you," or something like that. Like they're best buddies. So if you move them together, chances are Tanev probably signs there and just sticks around with Markstrom as well.
And why wouldn't you? What about New Jersey would you not want to play for right now?
Yeah, like that's a top contender, or should be. Like they're not right now, in my opinion, but they should be. And you bring in Markstrom Tanev, I think that gets them there to where they're probably a top 5 team easily in the
Yeah.
league.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's
then you,
just it's improving on an already great team. Like
yeah,
I would have to check, but I think in my preseason predictions I might have had them winning the President's Trophy. Like
I did.
like
I know for a fact I did.
yeah, like we everyone was very high on this team going into the season, and despite what's gone on, they've also lost Jack Hughes for stretches at a time, and they've had quite a few different injuries throughout the year. I believe Dougie Hamilton's missed quite a bit of time as well.
Yeah, he's still not back.
Yeah. So
Yeah, my prediction is I had the Devils to win the Presidents, and I actually had them to break the curse and win the cup. So,
I thought you were gonna say break the regular season record, and I was like, dude, it just
oh
got
no,
set.
no, I just thought I was all in on them this year, and it's yeah, and you know what, they have had some injuries that have really hurt the team. Like Keisher's missed quite a bit of time. Jack Hughes has missed quite a bit. Dougie Hamilton feels like he's been out for forever, and then their goaltending just really hasn't been it. And again, I think that's where Markstrom really uh, puts them over the hump that they're trying to get over. So it's going to be very interesting going all the way up to the trade deadline and seeing what Calgary does, what some of these other teams in the mix do, and what we might see the price end up being on a Markstrom, potentially Markstrom and Tanev trade.
Yeah, and just for anyone who is wondering, just looking at the Flames cap friendly right now, and this year the Flames have their first round pick and Vancouver's first round pick. They have all their picks except for their fifth, which they have Chicago's fifth, and they don't have their seventh. They also have the Devils' fourth round pick. So they've got basically all their picks, and they've got an extra Vancouver first.
I think that fourth from New Jersey can bump up to a third. No,
The fourth round pick becomes a third round pick if am I crazy? If Vancouver makes it to the conference finals. It shows it as
oh,
it
because
shows it as a Devils pick.
yeah. What was the pick that
Oh, I see. Vancouver currently owns Vancouver and the New Jersey Devils fourth rounder. And if Vancouver makes it to the conference finals, the pick will still be a fourth, but it will be the better of those fourths.
okay.
I don't know
Okay,
when they
gotcha.
got I knew Calgary's done a lot of deals with the Devils lately, so I figured that was a deal with the Devil, but that was actually a Vancouver trade, funny enough.
Oh, I'm thinking of the third they got from the Devils in the Toffoli deal, but that was a third round pick in the 2023 draft, so that's why I'm not seeing it. Okay, that makes more sense. But like, yeah, they've got decent, you know, picks. Obviously, it kind of hurts
They've
next
already
year
got some
because
good
you've got,
prospects too.
yeah, it does kind of suck that next year they don't have the luxury of having their first and Florida's first. Like if you're in a position like kind of what we're seeing with San Jose right now, where and a little bit different because San Jose is obviously horrendous, so they're picking higher up in the draft. But like back-to-back years of having multiple firsts is so huge in building up your prospect pool. So it kind of sucks that they lose one of those, but what can you do? That's still having three as of right now is solid. And again, if they move Tanev and Markstrom, they're going to add more into that mix.
Yeah. One thing I do want to throw at you, just for the sake of it, because I was wondering how much cap space the Flames had going into next year, especially with Dylan Dubé coming off the books, and I was looking at the upcoming free agents that they would be able to sign, and I see one that is very interesting here. It'd be such a strange rivalry considering how much this kind of interconnected rivalry that Tampa already has with the Flames. But could you imagine if, after saying he wants to return to Florida, Sam Reinhart signs with the Calgary Flames?
I don't think they can.
You don't think they have the room, or you don't think they do it?
I think they would have the cap space, but I think it depends on what Reinhardt's asking for.
Yeah.
Like if he's asking for if he's asking, for a $10 million contract for 7 years, I don't know if you can do that, because a big part of it is it's very similar to Huberdeau. He had a career year with the Panthers there. He comes to Calgary, signs that big deal, and then he couldn't. And again, I don't think it's Huberdeau lost his skill. I think a big part of it was who Huberdeau was also playing with. And now Sam Reinhart is playing with those exact players. So yeah. I think it really depends on what Reinhardt's wanting. Like if he ends up being like,
it's got to be hard to convince guys who just played a year of hockey in South Beach, Florida, to come up to buttfuck Calgary, right? It can definitely be a tough sell for the free agents there. We know that. But that I am all for Team Chaos. That would just be such a fun, weird rivalry to see. Like some of the Flames' biggest rivals after that would be the Oilers, the Panthers, and the Lightning, of all teams. Like like between the Tkachuk deal and then that,
the Bennett
and Sam Bennett too. Like there's this weird interconnectivity with those teams in recent years.
I really do think that Sam Reinhart does stay in Florida. I think given the success he's having this year, he can cash in and get that 8-year deal with them. They just went to the Cup final last year. They're, in my opinion, a top 3 team in the East right now. It makes no sense for him to leave. If he can get that 8-year deal and get anything of $9 million plus, I think he's all over that, and he might even take a bit of a discount to stay there.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't want it to. I'm not a Florida fan, so I don't want it to. But I do think he'll take the discount and stay there, because
I want the chaos again.
I think there would be a team that would give him 10. I think there'd be a team that might even go 10.5. Like,
I think so.
With how he's done, especially since so much of his points have been goals this year. Not to mention he's 28. He's in his prime. He's still on the young side of the prime. But Florida's not going to be shelling out more than Matthew Tkachuk's making, more than Barkov's making.
No.
So at most he makes 9.5, and something tells me that's probably the number he comes in at, either 9 or 9.5, which would be a great deal for them if he can reproduce these results.
And especially when you sign him, you roll with him playing with whoever. It's not like you're going out and signing a free agent and then trying to figure out where to work them in. Like you know what works, and if you've got that as part of your core now that you run with, like, I really don't see him leaving. But again, I like the chaos. Like I like going into trade deadline day, and it's like, all the top players haven't been moved before the deadline. They're getting moved on deadline day, and teams are trying to up the the ante every time. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this big name player is going here. And then last second, they get traded there. On free agency day, I like going in and being like, we don't know where these big names are going to sign. Like, it's before free agency even starts. We already know where basically all of the big names are heading. So I want some chaos. So if he ends up
so
walking,
fun
and
when
like
that happens.
I'm all for that. And if he does hit the market, like Calgary, I mean Calgary would definitely be in on him. Like
They would at
anytime you've
least
got someone who
try.
wants to be there, you know Calgary's going to be all in.
Yeah.
So
And like what year was it? Was it 2016 when Stamkos his contract was ending the first time, and you know, right, he signed his big extension with us like 5 minutes before free agency hit. And then like 40 minutes later, I think there was the Subban Weber trade. Like the hockey world was on fire that day.
and that
Like,
was also the Taylor Hall Adam Larson. Like that all
yeah.
happened in the span of, I think it was like 53 minutes or something.
Yeah, like there
Like it
was
was
so much
wild.
going on, especially for those boring summer days where you don't have any hockey news. Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like what the hell is going on? Like it's
Yeah.
I love when they have those more chaotic free agent days. Obviously, hopefully not at the expense of my team, but
Yeah.
it's really fun to see these unexpected things happen all of a sudden, and hopefully we get some of that because last year we really did not get any major things going on.
No. And that's the thing is like most teams now, it's if they know a guy's not gonna re-sign or something, they ship him off, and the team he goes to, he ends up signing with, or a guy gets his rights get traded at the draft, and like it's not very often you see kind of bigger name players just don't end up signing and walk to free agency anymore. And
Yeah,
I miss that chaotic aspect of it.
yeah,
Maybe we might be getting that, with the way some guys are playing, and I think Elias Lindholm might be a slam dunk to hit free agency this year, which
I don't think so. I think they would be crazy not to sign
I
him
don't
if
think
he
Vancouver can sign him.
if he asks for 13 mil for 8 years, you give it to him. I think he is the core of that team. I think he is the centerpiece to them.
Elias
I
Lindholm?
geez, I thought you were talking about Elias Pettersson. I was looking at
No,
him on the
no.
list. I was
Oh
like,
no, he'll get Lindholm, or Pedersen will get at least 12.
yeah.
No, I'm talking about Lindholm though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with Lindholm. I think there's very little chance that he re-signs in Vancouver, especially since he was willing to leave Calgary over an argument of $1 million per year, which on an 8-year contract is $8 million.
Yeah.
Um, not that $1 million is even a small amount, but
Yeah, no, Pedersen's
he
like
would not
for
he would
sure.
not take a discount to stay in Vancouver.
But it's also if, you know, I think Pedersen, if he gets signed by Vancouver, like whatever he asks for, you basically give it to him. But it's also interesting, like if he doesn't sign or doesn't want to stick around in Vancouver, and I mean the way they're playing right now, why would you not?
65
But
points in 50
but
games.
he's an RFA, so if he doesn't want to sign with Vancouver, then it's the sweepstakes of teams trying to trade for him, which would be
That
would be
crazy.
absolutely chaotic. Like that would be bigger than Matthew Tkachuk, basically, and the Matthew Tkachuk one happened very quickly.
Yeah.
But like if it's a week-long process of teams just sending their offers in, that could get pretty entertaining from our aspect.
If you qualify a an RFA, other teams are allowed to offer them a contract, and then you would be compensated with like 4 first rounders in this case, right?
Yeah, but you also have the option to match whatever the team offers.
True. So yeah, the guy has to agree to the match, to the
And it's also Pedersen would
qualified.
have to agree to the
Qualify.
contract with whatever team. Like no team can come and just be like 10 million for 7 years. Like Pedersen could be like, no, if you want me, let's work it. And that could work out to Pedersen's advantage. Like if he even is okay staying in Vancouver, but they don't want to pay him, a team on the market offers him the 13 mil, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do that." Then it's Vancouver. Are you gonna match and keep me, or are you gonna lose me? So
Yeah.
it's it's gonna be interesting because I thought he would have already been signed by now, but
Yeah, he's the guy they can't lose, and obviously they kind of can't almost with him being an RFA, but you'd still
yeah,
think he'd be signed at this point.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, when you get those guys like that are ending up the John Tavares, the Johnny Gaudreaus, it's exciting to see where they're gonna land, and
Yeah,
obviously one of them went to Toronto, which was big news, and one went to Columbus, which was less news.
was
Uh,
crazy though because Columbus wasn't even on the radar. It was like the Islanders. I think
people
the Flyers apparently never offered him, but
People
apparently they
were
were in on
so
him. The
convinced he was going
Devils,
to go to the Devils. Like
yeah,
every Flames fan I knew was like, he's a devil in my mind already. Like,
yeah.
and not just because he was leaving. They actually thought he was going to New Jersey.
And then Columbus came in at the last hour and threw an offer down, and then I think it was even less than what New Jersey offered him. And
Apparently,
then all of a sudden it was just like boom, Goudreau's heading to Columbus and was like, holy shit, like Columbus just came out of nowhere. Like that was entertaining stuff to follow along throughout
yeah,
because it was a crazy couple hours. It sounded like New Jersey was a done deal, and then Columbus of all
yeah.
teams. So
It was very funny to me hearing a bunch of people living in Calgary, obviously, who Calgary's not exactly a destination place, and everyone's just like, it was just so much cope of like, if he could have went to a better team, I would understand, but he went to Columbus. Who cares about Columbus? And it's like so many of these people who living in Calgary, not being like, hey, Columbus sucks, but everyone who's gone there seems to enjoy it. I have no idea what the city is actually like, but
yeah, I think people like because they're still a bit more quieter, and
I
like
was
they
gonna
don't
say
like those who
Johnny
don't like the
Gaudreau,
cameras
like
and lights in their face all the time.
yeah, like he has Toronto on his no trade list. Like he doesn't want the media in his face. I think he just wants to hang out, play his hockey, do his thing, and get paid.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But with all of that, this is all hypothetical because we don't know what's going to happen leading up to the trade deadline. But we're less than a month away, so there's going to be lots of news coming out now for us over the next month or so. So from here on out, the next few episodes are going to be jam packed with lots of trade talks and rumors and all that fun stuff. Potentially even some signings. Maybe some teams lock some guys in long term before the deadline hits. You never know.
Yeah, I got to imagine there's a couple guys around the league that are really due for an extension that I think getting towards the end of the season are going to be a couple more inked in for sure.
Yeah, look a lot like if you want to keep an eye on guys who might be traded, might sign. Look at San Jose because they got quite a few guys who are on that cusp of on the last year of their deals. It's either they agree to a deal and sign something by the deadline, and if they don't, they'll for sure be on their way out the door because San Jose can't afford to lose any assets. So because they got quite a few that they gotta figure out before then.
Yeah. Do you want to cover this last bit of news before I get
I
into
I really
the
I really don't care to. Like, I don't care for this. I think
Yeah,
it's
I know.
garbage. Like, but yeah. So everybody's favorite team, the Chicago Blackhawks, and obviously with Connor Bedard and the AHL squad, will host the 2025 Winter Classic at Wrigley Field, taking on the St. Louis Blues. Again, like I don't get why it feels like it's just a rotation. It's like this year it's basically either Chicago or Boston pretty much is in the Winter Classic against whoever. And then the next year they do a fun one with different teams. Like I thought Vegas and Seattle was awesome this year. And then the following year they just go back to the well of reusing the same teams. And I get it. Like obviously the NHL wants to market the shit out of Bedard with the Blackhawks. But it's like, are we really going to watch a Winter Classic game of in what I think is even going to be worse next year, a regressing St. Louis Blues team taking on Bedard and again, kind of the AHL squad that Chicago has. Like,
Yeah, we're gonna
I'd rather
see
see,
Andreas Anthony put up 20 minutes a night in the Winter Classic. Like
Yeah. Like
Just
I'd rather watch
make it
like
Toronto Boston.
yeah, that would be incredible.
Like grab two teams that have a rivalry, a fresh rivalry that's recent, that are also doing well. Like, I don't think these teams that are getting in the middle of rebuilds should be getting things like this. Like, wait until they're good, and if you're not good for 20 years, then I guess that's just your fault, right? But
Yeah.
eventually, when most teams get good, then you can give it to them.
But like later on this season, we're getting
Yeah.
the one I don't really care about is we're getting the stadium series of, I believe it's the Devils and the Flyers facing off, and then the Islanders and Rangers. Why could you not be like, okay, we're not going to do a Islanders Rangers stadium series? That would have even been a terrific Winter Classic to do next year. The battle of the New York teams, like that would have been stellar. And those are two teams that are, Islanders aren't top league, but Rangers are, and that's a heated rivalry. Like that would have been a phenomenal choice as well. I just
Yeah.
think there's so many better teams that could have been mixed instead of being just like, because the Blackhawks have Bedard, we're just going to shove them back in when they're not a good team. I want to
They
watch,
are
and
bottom in
it's
the league. They are 32
yeah,
out of 32 right now, and it's lame that they got picked for it.
and it's the only game that takes place that day. Like, thankfully, we have the World Juniors to watch because I won't care to really watch this game. Like, I want to watch, two great teams go head to head, not watch a decent team in St. Louis versus the Blackhawks. That the only reason they're in it is to watch Bedard in it. Like, but
Yeah, just watching a team in a rebuild in these events is very strange. Like,
that
and
being said, if it was San
I do
Jose,
wonder
I
if they
would
would
love
get
it.
it. I do wonder if they would have got it without Bedard. I think they still would have.
No,
I think they want to
there
market
was a
Chicago
there
so
was
much
a clip
regardless.
it. There was a clip it from something that they're gonna milk Bedard for as long as they can. Yeah, while
Oh, of
he's coming
course.
into the league. So I feel like that's because if they didn't have Bedard, like there's no way you could tell me that they would pick the Blackhawks and be like led by their star player Nick Foligno and Anthony C. Like
Yeah.
it's 100% because Bedard was in it. And even so, like give us a different team than the Blues. Like I get they're kind of rivals, but I just
If
feel
you
like there's
really want
so
to
so
call it
many
that.
better matchups you could have
At the very you
could have had.
even Chicago, Detroit, something like that. You can market it as original
Yeah.
six teams. You do
Or
whatever.
even Chicago Boston could have worked. Like
Yeah,
there's just so many better
it's
options.
strange.
But
Um,
that's just why the Winter Classics to a lot of people don't really mean as much, and you see the ratings kind of drop every year is because more and more people are just starting to not become as interested in it because it's kind of the same recycled shit we're getting. So it's basically the big market teams and that's kind of it. So
yeah,
which it is what it is. We'll have World Juniors on to watch. So
yeah. Do you have anything else before I get into the league leaders?
I do not. Nope.
All right, because we actually have had a few games since the break has ended. Um, Starting with, we'll just go with points. Uh, Back at the top, we got number one. We got with 87 points, Nikita Kucherov. In second, with 85 points, Nathan McKinnon. And in third, 73 points for David Pasternak. For goals, we have in first, of course, Austin, geez, Austin Matthews with
There we go.
41 goals. In second, we have Sam Reinhart with 37. And tied for third place, we have both Nikita Kucherov and David Pasternak with 33 goals apiece.
Yep.
Let's still do. Nah, do we care about plus minus? Quinn Hughes leads with plus minus with plus 34.
Yeah.
Only one person for plus minus. That's all. That's all he deserves.
That's all that matters.
Going over to goalies, for goals saved above expected in the league. In first, we got 22.6 with Connor Hellebuck. 11 18.8 for Thatcher Demko in second. And in third, Connor Ingram with 14.5. As well as save percentage here. In first, Connor Hellebuck with a 0.923. Jeremy Swayman in second with a 0.922. And in third, Joey Decord with a 0.921.
Yeah,
Joey Decord is putting a really nice season together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all the relevant stats I got here for you.
Right on. Well, we actually managed to make a little bit of a long one out of this, so we kind of just brought up a couple topics and we're able to roll with them. And that's kind of the beauty of talking about hockey. You know, there's always stuff to talk about, whether it's breaking news, big news, or stuff we just make up off the cusp. That's kind of the beauty of the trade deadline season. Do you have anything left to add in before we roll out?
No, I think that's pretty much everything.
Right on. Awesome. Well, once again, thank you to everybody for listening to yet another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. We always upload new episodes every Friday. And as you may have seen earlier this week, we kind of throw out random ones here and there, depending on what's going on around the league. But as always, feel free to come and join in with us over on Instagram or Twitter /X at SEU Hockey. I'm sure we'll be posting lots of stuff in the lead up to the trade deadline. Potentially maybe some mock trades that we come up with, or maybe just throwing out some rumors that we've heard and just trying to engage in some conversations with you guys. Once again, thank you to everybody for listening, and we will see you guys next week.